I surveyed 483 database users about which databases and editors that they use. I learned what the most popular databases are, what the most popular editors are, and how many people choose the default editor for each database. A few weeks ago, I created a simple 4-question survey. It asked what database vendors do you use, what editors do you use, your operating system, and your job role. I sent this to people who have signed up to my email newsletter and my YouTube subscribers. Before I get into the results, there are a couple of caveats. First, this was only sent to my subscribers and not the wider data industry. You could say this skews the results a little towards the kind of content that I create. Second, it's a much smaller sample size than other surveys like Stack Overflow, but I think it's still helpful. Let's look at the summary of each question and some interesting things I learned from the results. The first question was, what database technologies do you work with? I had a multiple choice list of answers as well as another text box. People were able to select more than one. The most popular database is Oracle, with SQL Server a close second. MySQL was just behind in third and PostgreSQL in fourth. I'm not surprised by this, as for the first few years of my website and YouTube channel, I focused on Oracle content. I've recently created more content on these other 3 databases, so that may be a factor. The next few on the list are SQLite and MariaDB, which is understandable as they are popular relational databases. We then have MongoDB, which is surprising as I don't teach any NoSQL databases, but it's popular and people use more than one type. The next question was, which SQL editors do you use? The most popular response was SSMS, the editor by Microsoft that comes with SQL Server. Next was Oracle SQL Developer, mainly used for Oracle databases. If you're wondering why the top tool is for SQL Server but the top database was Oracle, we'll find out later in this video. We then have MySQL Workbench, and then in number 4 is Visual Studio Code, which is surprising. I know VS Code is popular for software development, but I didn't know how popular it was for working with SQL. Next we have dbeaver, which is a cross-platform tool which I use for my Postgres work, and then pgadmin, which is a popular tool for Postgres. Many of these other tools I've heard of, and some I haven't. The third question was, what operating system do you use? This was a multiple choice question as well. By far, the most popular response was Windows. Second was Linux, which I thought was surprising. In third place was macOS, followed by a range of others. Question 4 was, which job title best describes your role? The most common response was software developer. Next was data analyst, then a couple of database roles such as database developer and database administrator. It's good to see that a wide range of roles use SQL. I've had a few of these roles and I remember using SQL at the time. Now we'll look into some further analysis of the responses. How many different database vendors do people use? The most common response was 1, with about 38% of the responses. So 38% of people use a single database vendor. The frequency goes down as the number of vendors goes up, which is expected. 61% of people use more than one database vendor. The most was 9, where one person reported using a combination of MySQL, PostgreSQL, Oracle, SQL Server, MongoDB, DB2, MariaDB, Google BigQuery, and Teradata. We saw what the most popular editors were earlier in the video. Can we break this up by editor? We can, but the results aren't very precise. This is because the survey didn't ask which tool was used with each vendor. It just captures the vendors and editors that are used. So if someone reported using Oracle and SQL Server, they may also say they use SQL Developer and SSMS. The results for this analysis would show SSMS in the Oracle list, which may or may not be correct. So I just wanted to mention that first. Here are the most popular editors for people who said they use Oracle. The top entry is SQL Developer. We may be able to ignore SSMS here because, as I just mentioned, it's hard to know if this is really for Oracle or for people who use Oracle and SQL Server. The next response is SQL Plus, a command line editor for Oracle. We then have other entries such as Toad, VS Code, and dbeaver. What about SQL Server? SSMS is the clear outlier here, and if we ignore SQL Developer and MySQL Workbench, we can see VS Code and Visual Studio high on the list here. Here are the results for MySQL. The most common editor is MySQL Workbench. If we ignore SSMS and SQL Developer, we can then see VS Code and dbeaver. There are a bunch of other tools that could be used with MySQL. I noticed here an entry of SQL Yog. This was actually the first SQL editor that I ever used, back in 2004 when I started learning MySQL. Now for Postgres, the top entry is pgadmin. We can also see dbeaver high on the list, as well as VS Code. In hindsight, I should have asked for editors that are used for each vendor, as that could have been helpful to know and would result in a better analysis. Let's move on to the next question. For the 4 main vendors that I cover, which are Oracle, SQL Server, MySQL and Postgres, there's one editor that comes with the database or is known as the default editor. These are Oracle SQL Developer, SSMS, MySQL Workbench and pgadmin. For this question, I wanted to know how many respondents use these default editors. We can see the 4 databases here, the number of people who said they use this database, and the number of people who reported using these tools. This means that 241 people said they use Oracle, and out of those, 187 said they use SQL Developer, which is 77%. For SSMS and SQL Server, it was 84%. MySQL and MySQL Workbench is 64%, and Postgres and pgadmin is 53%. So most SQL Server users will use SSMS to work with their database at 84%. For Postgres, the usage is much different, with about half using pgadmin. Earlier in the video, we learned that many people use a single database vendor. What editors and what database vendors are most popular for these people? Here are the results. The tools for the popular databases such as Oracle and SQL Server are broken down here, which can help to see how popular they are compared to each other. It shows generally what the preferred editors are if you're only going to use one database. I'll also be publishing these results as a blog post on my website, including the numbers and the charts, which I'll link in the description below. If there are any updates or any extra analysis you'd like to see, let me know in the comments and I can publish the results there. What did you think of the analysis and the results? Is there anything else you'd like to know from this data? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.